With everyone, if you so choose, please stand with me and remain standing for the pledge to our nation's flag. Pastor.
Okay.
Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, our city's leaders gather today in a time of hope, for we give thanks for our improving health and the opening of our lives and what that means for business and prosperity and hope and future. We thank you for seeing us through this pandemic, which has been a trying time. And Lord, we thank you for the strength you've given us to endure. And we continue to pray for those whose lives were lost and those who continue to be affected by this pandemic. Our leaders today gather today in a time of transition. We thank you for Mayor Ames and her dedicated service these years, and we pray joy for the next season of her life. We thank you for other council members who are stepping away and others who are stepping in. May each one's comings and goings be peaceful and full of promise of what is to come. Lord, in this new season of change, may it be a time of renewed commitment to the common good. May old grievances pass away. May your grace bring new beginnings. And may this new season for the council and the city be full of hope and promise. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Williams. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Ames.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Durio.
Here.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Present.
Councilmember Samuel.
Present.
And Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have two recognitions or proclamations today. And if you are here for that purpose and you need to leave, please wait until we finish both of them, and I'll let you know, but of course you're always welcome to stay. Our first one will be delivered by Councilmember Turner, one of our newest members. Don't mess up.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas one of our very own citizens, Melba Dupree, will be celebrating our 100th birthday on tomorrow, May 26, 2021. Melba was born May 26, 1921. She moved to Beaumont in 1942 and married Dutch Dupree on May 4, 1946. And whereas Melba's husband was a prisoner of war for 3.5 years during World War II and was a survivor of the Bataan Death March. Dutch was also a recipient of the Purple Heart, and whereas Melba has lived at her current residence in Beaumont since 1947. This year will mark 79 years of her being a proud citizen of Beaumont, Texas. Melba was a member of Anchor Church of Beaumont for 70 plus years. Melba has two daughters, Becky, who is a retired school principal, and Margaret Fowler. Melba has one son, Nathan Dupree, who is a pastor in Arkansas. Melba has 7 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. And whereas Melba worked for Southwestern Bell for 40 years before retiring early so she can care for her husband until his death. She now has been retired for about 40 years, and whereas Melba has 407 friends on Facebook and a faithful Christian lady. She was driving until the age of 98, wow, and enjoyed cooking her old chambers on her old chamber stove. And now, therefore, on behalf of the City of Beaumont and Mayor Becky Ames, we celebrate Ms. Dupree and hereby recognize May 26, 2021 in honor of Melba Dupree's 100th birthday in Beaumont, and we wish to thank more abundant life spent with her family and friends. Thank you.
If y'all would like to come forward, please, and shake everyone's hand if you would like to do so, Ms. Dupree. Congratulations on your birthday, and y'all can feel free to say a few words. Yay! All right.
Wow.
Thank you for coming today. We're so happy to see you. Happy birthday. Thank you. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all want to?
Proclamation.
Oh, the prop. You hand that?
Mayor, could we have a picture?
Certainly you can.
Ms. Dupree?
Here you go.
And this is her granddaughter, Amy. more. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you're good. I'm tall enough today.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council, and I want to let you know, each one of y'all, how much it means that you recognize. To me, she's Sister Dupree. I went to church with her for many years, well over 50, so I've known her all my life. She used to hold me, but probably couldn't do that anymore. But when Sister Dupree turned 98, I got her a mason jar and put 98 marbles in it and a little gift card. And I took it to her birthday party, and I said, Sharon, I want you to have this so you can tell everybody, even though you're 98 years old, you still have all your marbles. So now she's going to be 100 tomorrow, and I appreciate y'all recognizing her. I appreciate Ms. Gates getting this prepared and everything. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. If I was going to describe Melba Dupree to you, it would be a lady of quiet strength. And she wouldn't want all this fanfare, but you know, when you get a little bit older, sometimes you have to go where you don't want to go. And so we're very proud of you today, Sister Dupree. Thank you very much for your life, the example that you and your husband lived. And you're a great lady, and we appreciate you. God bless you. Thank
Happy
you.
birthday. Yay. Well, thank y'all so much, and we hope you have a great day tomorrow, Ms. Dupree. And now it's my privilege to read this next proclamation about Tracy Ballard Arline. Whereas Tracy Ballard Arline is a native of Beaumont, Texas, Tracy is loved deeply by her family, friends, as well as her community. We would like to recognize Tracy today as she is an inspiration to our citizens, and whereas Tracy is a graduate of Lamar University, where she received a bachelor's degree in business administration and human resource management. Tracy has also received an Associate of Applied Science degree in business communication and information systems from Lamar Institute of Technology. Tracy is a proud and active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc., Texas Christian Professional Women Network, and Top Ladies of Distinction, as well as a host of other local, state, and federal organizations. And whereas Tracy has 2 children, Jaron Michael and Erilyn Arline, Tracy raised her children to give back and to serve others who are less fortunate without judgment. Tracy has always fought for her children to be heavily involved in extracurricular activities, as well as a large emphasis on scholastic achievements. Jaron and Erilyn are flourishing in both areas while also fully caring for their mother's physical limitations. Excuse me. And whereas Tracy finds her passion in helping and encouraging others, after struggling to find suitable employment, she developed a career as a motivational speaker. Excuse me, y'all. Published author, life and health agent, and life and health coach. Tracy is the author of Passionate and Prioritize, Learning How to Keep God First, a 30-day devotional, and her Journey of 365 devotional. And whereas Tracy has spent the last 20 years volunteering in Beaumont Independent School District, thank you, she has a passion for connecting with students. She uses her own trials as she faced throughout life as a person with physical challenges as fuel to pour into those who are hurting. Achieving the reachable goals of self-acceptance and self-determination were very instrumental in finding her personal place of peace. This foundation paved the road for her path in assisting others by guiding them to find their place of peace and contentment. Now therefore, I, Becky Ames, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, do hereby recognize on this day, May 25th, 2021, Tracy Ballard Orline in Beaumont for her motivation to encourage others as well as her outstanding accomplishments and inspiration that she is to our community. Accordingly, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Beaumont to be affixed, signed today, May 25th, 2021. And of course, with us today is Tracy Ballard Orline. Tracy, if you would like to come forward, please shake everyone's hand and feel free to say a few words. And I believe you got some fans here that want to take a photograph with you. Okay. They are. Well, we're so glad that you're here and you're showing strength. Thank you. All right. And they have a group. The pink and green ladies. Is that a lady? Alpha Kappa Alpha. Welcome, Alpha Kappa Alpha. Hi, Elaine. I didn't see you up there. How are you? And we have with us Alpha Kappa Alpha Denise Spooner, your president, our BISD board, Elaine Moore, wife of former Mayor David Moore, and y'all have a good group here. Thank y'all for coming today.
Before she speaks, I want to say that the mayor, Councilman Samuel, David Moore, we worked with Miss Arline 25 years ago. She served on the mayor's committee for persons with disabilities, and was great back then. I happened to see her at a community event about a month ago, and great success story not only with her but her two children. Her son's about to go to Rice University with great scholarship. Instead of reading all the negative stuff we do, especially on social media, the mayor and Councilman Samuel wanted to recognize you with a positive story, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I think we have one more picture.
Do y'all want to?
We're top ladies of distinction.
Y'all want to come too? Well, what other groups you got with you today?
And our president's not here because she's working, but on behalf of Lady Burley Nobles, we're here representing top ladies.
All right. Well, y'all feel free to say something about Tracy.
And top teams of America.
All right.
All right, 1, 2, and 3.
And Lady Arline, we love Lady Arline.
Uh-huh.
We top ladies of distinction. She's very active in our organization, and she just became our second vice president.
All right.
And
Congratulations.
To the mayor and council, I think I'm going to be in trouble if I don't say something. I'm the president of our local chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Tracy has been our chaplain for many years. She's always on duty, and she always brings us a word that we need to hear. And she may prepare something ahead of time, but when she gets to meeting, she just senses what we need, and it changes, and it's always on time. So we appreciate you all, and we thank you all very much for this recognition for her today.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate you, Tracy, and all of the organizations that you're involved with that give so much back to our community. Our hats off to you today, and you even got to share the limelight with the lady that's 100 years old. So that does conclude our recognition. So, or if you are here for that purpose and you need to leave, now is the time to do so. However, you're always welcome to stay. Thank you. I was about to. I don't know what happened. Yeah. I was thinking myself, I can get through this without. I would like to read that at the close of the city council meeting, the council will hold an executive session to consider matters related to the deliberation of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property in accordance with section 551.072 of the government code, to wit, 555 Main Street. Consider matters related to contemplated or pending litigation in accordance with section 551.071 of the government code, claim of Lauren Lewis. Now would be the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. If you would like to make public comment today on scheduled agenda items number 4, the consent agenda, item number 4 and 9 through 11. Number 5 through 8 have already been heard in a joint public hearing between the Planning Commission and the City Council and are not available for comment. So right now, it's for the consent agenda, item number 4 and 9 through 11. If you would like to speak on one of these items and you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip at the rear of the room and hand it to the clerk at the front of the room. She will call out your name. We would appreciate if you would keep your comments to 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. If you're here to speak on any other item, I will open up the microphone at the end of our general business for that purpose. But right now, it's for the consent agenda, items number 4 and 9 through 11. The consent agenda actually is 1 through 3. We have a new format that I like very much. Thank you, City Manager. Okay, is there anyone?
We don't have any, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no one that wants to speak on one of these items, I'll close the floor. And council, I'll entertain a motion, please, for the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. I believe it was here. Is there any discussion, questions, or comments? Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Consent agenda, item number 3, is this project completed yet?
I believe it is.
Yeah, well, this phase is complete. We're gonna come back to you with a bid to close it out for the Army Corps of Engineers. We had discussed when we brought the change order, another change order with respect to the project, that there was more dirt within the canal than was projected, and we couldn't extend this contract any further. We could only add 25% by state law.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other
Glad you brought that up. The project's not complete, but this contract will be,
Yeah,
if you approve it today.
because that's the one we talked about that had much more
More work to do.
work to do
But
than
we'll
we
have to go
thought
back-
it was
like you
going to
said,
be.
go back out for bids.
Exactly. Okay. All right. If there's no more questions or comments, there is a motion and a second on the floor for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 4, please.
Mayor and Council, item number 4 is an ordinance of the City of Beaumont, Texas, approving the rates proposed by Texas Gas Service Company, a division of One Gas Incorporated, TGS or company, pursuant to its Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program, referred to as GRIP, filing made with the City of Beaumont on February the 11th, 2021, finding that the meeting complies with the Open Meetings Act, making other findings and provisions related to the subject, and declaring an effective date. And the City Attorney, Tyrone Cooper, will lead the item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
On February 11th of this year, Texas Gas Service filed with the City of Beaumont an annual gas reliability infrastructure program, commonly known as GRIP, for interim rate adjustment request to increase gas rates in its central Gulf service area for the company. On March 23rd, the council suspended the effective date of the proposed increase to allow for a 45-day review of the application. The review has been completed, and it has been determined that the company's filings comply with the GRIP statutes. I have provided for you a chart that shows the impact of the rate increase on its various class of customers, and we would recommend approval of the ordinance.
Thank you. Council, you have heard the reading of item number 4. May I have a motion on this item, please?
Move to approve.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any questions or discussion? Councilmember Gaddis.
Texas Gas Service Company, how much of their business is done in Beaumont, do we know?
I do not.
Okay. I mean, I'm aware, of course, that CenterPoint Energy is the primary provider of gas services to our citizens. Do we have any idea who they provide services to?
I think they provide service to a few commercial customers on the outskirts of town. I'm not sure how many.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? There is a motion and a second on the floor for approval of this item. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? There being none, the motion carries unanimously. Number 5, please.
Mayor and Council, item number 5 is an ordinance entitled, an ordinance granting a specific use permit to allow a boat and recreational vehicle storage facility in a GCMD, General Commercial, Multiple Family Dwelling District for property located at 8200 Phelan Boulevard in the city of Beaumont, Jefferson County, Texas. At a joint public hearing held on May the 17th, the Planning Commission recommended 5-0 to approve the request with 3 conditions that are listed in the staff memorandum. The administration recommends approval with the same 3 conditions.
Thank you, Council. You have heard the reading of item number 5. Is there a motion on this item, please?
Move to approve.
Okay. Second. And I'm assuming that is with the conditions.
With the
Councilman?
conditions.
And you too? Yes. Okay. All right. Is there any questions or comments on this item? If there's none, all in favor of the motion with the 3 conditions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously as well. Number 6, please.
Item number 6 is an ordinance entitled, an ordinance granting a specific use permit to allow a mortuary in an RCR residential conservation revitalization district for property located at 3510 Sarah Street in the city of Beaumont, Jefferson County, Texas. A joint public hearing held on May the 17th. The Planning Commission recommended 5-0 to approve the request with 2 conditions listed in the staff report. The administration recommends approval with those same 2 conditions.
Thank you, Council. You have heard the reading of item number 6. Is there a motion on this item, please?
So move for approval with the conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There any opposed? There being none, the motion passes unanimously. Item number 7, please.
Item number 7 is an ordinance entitled, an ordinance granting a specific use permit to allow a bar poker room in a GCMD, General Commercial, Multiple Family Dwelling District for property located at 7211 East Tex Freeway in the city of Beaumont, Jefferson County, Texas. Larry Bibbs is the applicant. The requested location is in the existing Market Basket shopping center located at the intersection of Highway 69 and Highway 105. At a joint public hearing held on May the 17th, the Planning Commission recommended 5-0 to approve the request. The administration recommends approval as well.
Thank you, Council. You have heard the reading of item number 7. Is there a motion on this item?
Move to approve.
There's a motion. for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? There being none, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, please.
Item number 8 is an ordinance entitled an ordinance issuing an amended specific use permit to allow a permanent training facility addition and expansion of the Entergy Hellbig Station in an RCR Residential Conservation Revitalization District located at 4950 Plant Road in the city of Beaumont, Jefferson County, Texas. A joint public hearing held on May the 17th. The Planning Commission recommended 5-0 to approve the request with the following 2 conditions. Number 1, landscaping be provided per City of Beaumont ordinance requirements. And number 2, that a sidewalk be provided along Plant Road. The administration recommends approval with the 2 conditions.
Thank you. Council, you have heard the reading of item number 8. May I have a motion on this item, please?
So move for approval with the conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second on this motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I think it was the second. Yeah, same time. Okay, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next item, please. Item number 9.
Mayor and Council, item number 9 is to consider a resolution authorizing and confirming that the city of Beaumont, that the city manager or his designee has approval to receive funds from the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds through the U.S. Department of Treasury. We are developing a proposed plan for $16.54 million that we received last week. And we'll have a work session with the city council soon to discuss how you'd like to use the money.
Okay. Council, you have heard the reading of item number 9. Is there a motion on this item, please?
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Prior to us having this workshop, can you send council the criteria of what would be eligible?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, there being none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and we have a couple of discussion items. If you'd like to take us into the next one, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and Council, the first discussion item is to review and discuss the seating at the Civic Center. And Keith Folsom will come forward. Mr. Folsom is over all of our facilities. The prior city council had a work session on this item, and so it is timely with some new council members. Emily Wheeler's coming forward as well, who's over event services, our event services department, and they'll walk you through what the situation is, and we'd like direction from you on how to move forward.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We've had ongoing issues with the retractable seating at the Civic Center for quite some time, so I had a consultant come in and assess the seating, and his findings were that they were unsafe to use, so we immediately stopped using those seats. And Keith can give you a rundown of what our options are moving forward. I have kind of the historical data and how we use those seats if you have questions.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I just want to kind of highlight, basically the Civic Center is going on about 44 years old, and that seating is original to the building. As Emily said, we got some unsafe issues, and some of the unsafe issues is our balcony rail up there is not up to balcony rail height, so it poses a hazard for citizens or patrons up there as a fall hazard, more especially if the retractable seating is retracted. The retractable seating, when it's pulled out, the safety issues of that, the seating itself on there, they've had some collapsing issues on that. The framework itself has some issues that need to be addressed. If that's kept, it's not what we're recommending. The retractable seating that we're talking about is all your lower seating that they can retract and pull out. when they need to increase the seating. If they leave them retracted, then they can use all the floor space for table seating or just floor seating. They've had issues with those being the age of it is. Retracting those, she's having to use, contract labor to come out and pull those seating in and out. If they get out of alignment there, it could damage a lot of the components in it and may never get it back in place. So what we've done is we come with two options. There were multiple options before. We kind of narrowed it down. Option one is what we'll be looking at. We'll be replacing the seating on the upper portion on the east, west, and south sides, and you should have a printout of the seating there. We would have to modify the balcony rail on the east, west, and south sides. And I'm not including the north side because we're basically doing away with the seating in there in this proposal. Emily said that they normally don't use that seating. The stage, if there is a stage event, is usually set up there, so the seating is really not usable. So we're banking on not spending the money on that, save a little bit there. We would demo the lower telescopic retractable seating and utilize that space for floor seating. And of course, demo the north upper and lower seating and not replace it. By pulling out this retractable seating and doing away with it, we basically gain about 3,600 square feet of floor space that will be usable. This option here, your seating capacity would be like 1,874, and then you can have an additional 1,000 floor seats for a total of 2,874 in your seating capacity. And the estimated cost for this option is $716,000. And I want to emphasize that if we do demo this retractable seating, it doesn't prevent us from coming back in the future if we wanted to add that seating back, if money and funding becomes available. So that's our option one, which we kind of recommend. Option two, which is a lot more costly, which is going to entail replacing the east, west, and south upper seating, replace the east, west, and south telescopic retractable seating and structural framing, demo and not replace the north side upper and lower seating, modify the railing on the east, west, and south upper seating areas. And the estimated cost on this option is $3,548,000. And this option here would allow you to have a seating capacity of 4,390 seats. And then we get into pulling in an architect on this. We'd be looking at around $25,500 for their services. So that's our two options we're bringing forth today to kind of seek some guidance on.
Did I hear you say that? I'm sorry.
You have to hire an architect for option A or option one?
I will have to have it for the balcony rail. Okay. The seating, I should be able to do it through, purchasing groups to minimize the cost.
And y'all are recommending item one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I think
We are, so we need direction from you. If you tell us to move forward, we would, again, that's an estimate, the $716,000. So we would pay for this with cash out of our fund balance, and go through the normal channels and go out for bid and so forth, or find a vendor that's authorized by the state of Texas. So, but our plan would be, if you choose option one, we pay for it with cash.
I have a question.
Sure.
Through your experience with other facilities, how long do we normally go before we need replacing of the seating?
it depends on the usage of it. I haven't had that much experience with the events. I've been here 20 years, but we haven't had to replace really. Well, I'll take it back. We have replaced the seating in the Julie because of Hurricane Rita. But usually the seating will last a long time. And as you can see, this seating is about 44 years old. It has had some maintenance and repairs done on it in the past.
So is it safe to say like roughly 30 years, or you can't really speak on that?
No, but I would think we could get about that much. Some of the older materials, as you say, will hold up better than the new materials nowadays.
Okay.
So can I guess this would be an Emily question. as far as the capacity, obviously, y'all are recommending the least, lesser expensive, and that's what I'm sure the council would want to do, but do you think it's going to prohibit us from having any functions that we've had before based on history because of the capacity, that it would, limit that?
I don't think so. I pulled the top 10 highest capacity events we've done in the last 10 years. And in 2013, we had about 2,900 people at a Disney show. And since then, the numbers for all the shows we've done in that facility have been less than 2,900. So in my opinion, if we went with option one for now, and like Keith said, if we wanted to come back later and replace the retractable seating, we could in the future. But for now, I think this would accommodate, or I know it would accommodate every event that we're currently doing and all the ones that we're getting inquiries about, just based on the historical data for over the last 10 years.
Perfect, thank you. Did you have
That
something?
was my question.
Okay, Councilmember?
Yes, one of the questions I have. Now, with the present seating capacity, we've not been able to go after those events that would require additional seating capacity. And that's been an issue prior to, and when we talk about conventions and attracting participants to the Civic Center, that's been an issue. So does that still limit our marketability by the limited seating capacity?
I've been here for a little over 8 years, and we really don't get a lot of inquiries for events that are over about that 3,000 mark. Like I said before, the data shows that we're not selling the number of tickets even on something like a Disney, where we had the ability to sell up to 4,000 tickets, but we had 2,900 people that came. I don't know that it changes our marketability. I think that it's a very odd number for capacity in general. I think people are looking for 1,200 seats, or they're looking for, 5,000 or above. And so we just don't get a lot of inquiries about shows in that venue that need more seats.
Okay, well, let me direct my question to Kyle. If you recall, several years ago, there was a question about the marketability of the Civic Center. And at that time, we did some considerations as to what we would do in going forward. Not just as it sits, what we could do, but as we talked about development in the downtown area, particularly along the river, we talked about options that would be available to the Civic Center. Can you kind of expand, if you recall, some of those conversations? Because if we're looking at spending anywhere from 716,000 to 4.3 million, and that's a facility that's 44 years old, and it's my thought that we were not just comfortable in doing what we've been doing in the past. We've been looking for, rather than having people get off the interstate here in downtown, we've been looking for ways of attracting more people to our city. So how does that fit in the grand scheme of what we're trying to do downtown?
Well, you and Mayor Ames have been instrumental in downtown development with staff. We've worked together on improvements downtown for 25 plus years, and I would say there's not many cities our size, 120,000, with a population of 120,000. We can go back and show where we've spent well over $50 million downtown in the last 10 to 15 years. So that's a lot of money for a city our size. And where did that money go? Well, it went to the event center, Lakeside Center, the Great Lawn, the lake, buried utilities where possible, put in the brick paved sidewalks, decorative lighting, and I think we could all recognize that had the city not spent that money over the last 15 years, what would downtown look like? I don't think any of us are happy to drive 2 to 3 blocks from this building and see the condition of some of the buildings that, you know, the windows are knocked out. We barricaded one building within the last 2 weeks that we don't own because the glass was falling on the sidewalk in the street. So yeah, those are things that we, the city of Beaumont, do not control. The things we control, we try to improve. We've improved this building from this council chambers to, we have made improvements to the Civic Center with signage, lighting, kitchen, go across to improvements we've made at the Julie Rogers Theater, the Jefferson Theater, Municipal Court, and again, the Event Center, Lakeside Center, all part of a plan that we've all worked together on, the two of you, for 25 plus years. You know, we had 6 railroad tracks back here that we couldn't really work around, and we met with legislators and railroad company in Austin, you remember that? Working with them to remove those 6 tracks. It took many, many years, as you know. We were able to remove 5 of the 6 tracks, and Burlington Northern Santa Fe wanted to keep 1 remaining track, which they have, and we understand it because, you know, they want access their own track into the Port of Beaumont. So that's why you have 1 track back there that we can work with. So, you know, when you think about the Event Center project and the Lakeside Center, that's 15+ million right there. And it was a number of mayors and councils that voted 7-0 in this room that supported that effort. And that's what it took to get it done, because it took us 3 or 4 years just to acquire the property from 30+ owners. And that grass back there from MLK all the way to Natchez Street was about this high. You had boats, deserted boats, shotgun houses. It was a mess, right? And we had to do some environmental cleanup work as well. Staff that's present, we all worked together to make that happen. But it took the council to back us, concerted effort to make it happen. So how does that tie into the Civic Center? Well, we've met with groups over the years that y'all been involved in, again, going back many, many years, about, hey, possible hotel here that could, you know, link to our Civic Center, use that space as a part of the hotel development. We have this great commercial kitchen. Didn't want to do it because of the 6 tracks back there. And then when we got down to 1 track, then it was feasible again. However, Harvey hit, and you know, we're still working with the Corps of Engineers, and we think that's going to happen, stabilize the bank where the shoreline is now. It's an estimated, let's say, $28 million project. So there's good things on the horizon, and we're going to talk about something in closed session upstairs today, where I think it's critical, and so does our staff, to have this approximate 4 acres adjacent to everything we own over here if we're really going to develop the next piece. The next piece is along the riverfront, and that's a council decision. You're going to have to decide, is that what you want looking forward 10, 20 years? Do you want to develop along the riverfront? Without that property, you really can't do it. You're locked in.
With the expenditure that we're proposing today to enhance the Civic Center, how does that fit into the grand scheme?
I would recommend the approximate $715,000, and we'll have additional floor space, and let's see what happens along the riverfront over the next couple of years, especially with the bank stabilization. And then if you did have a group that wanted to do something in a partnership with the city of Beaumont where they wanted the Civic Center space, then as Mr. Folsom and Ms. Wheeler mentioned, you can come back, make a lot of improvements. You can make any improvements you want to, but you could come back and add that up that retractable seating that we currently have that's in disrepair. So your options are good moving forward. Yeah, it costs money, but you can always come back and add the seating that you currently have.
Question: long-term vision, short-term vision. I understand short-term vision, we're talking about $716,000. Let's say we move forward and made this investment. What if long-term vision, we came back and said something like we maybe want to open up the backside of the Civic Center to where, as you can see, the beauty of the water, similar to our other center downtown. Making this investment, would it affect the long-term vision when we're coming back literally redoing something that we're investing money in today?
If the council moved forward with option one, it would not affect long-term vision, and it's exciting to sit here and hear you say those things and hear from a new council that wants to maybe do some big things. We haven't had that in a couple years, and that's what we ought to be thinking of is what improvements can we make today or in the near-term future that are gonna have a great impact 10 years from now, 30 years from now, and that's the thinking we need. I think the community wants that, the citizens want that. We just quite frankly haven't had it in a couple years.
Can I speak to the number of events that we're doing now?
Sure.
I think that might be helpful. In 2019, because we're not going to count 2020.
Right.
In 2019, we did 85 events in the Civic Center alone. The year before that, we did 73. And if we went back 5 years, we're doing 10 to 15 more per year. 10-ish years ago, less than 50 events a year. So we're sitting at 85 events a year right now. If things go smoothly, we don't have pandemics. So the building is really busy. So I don't want to give off the impression that nothing's going on over there and that the capacity will affect that. This building has become the home to almost every annual gala in town. It is a great place for someone like the Symphony of Southeast Texas to go when they bring in a bigger act and they want more seating capacity. It is for many graduations. BISD uses the facility for their convocation and to bring in student councils. So the facility is being used as a community facility. It's affordable, and people are using it 85 times a year right now. So it is definitely being used.
Yeah, and if I recall, when we talked about the capacity being larger, that was really more not as much the events that Emily brings in, but also the CVB with conferences that would fill the hotel rooms, and they needed bigger space. So if we see that happening, because I believe that came when we talked about what you're referring to, it was coming because of large conferences and our ability to market to them. Yeah, which we know. Yeah.
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, so when the Civic Center was built, it of course predates Ford Park. It predates the Montaigne Center. And so there was a market certainly back, and I remember, you're too young, Emily, but there was a market for all kinds of events at the Civic Center back in the 70s and 80s, in which we had concerts. There was a period of time where Lamar played their basketball games here. I'm wondering if we take out the seating capacity, because it does seem that in the 85 events that you mentioned, more of the events now today seem to be focused on using the floor space, setting up tables, having events of that sort. And of course, as you mentioned, if you want to have a concert, you can have a stage and you have floor seating, as well as I guess we'll still be able to use the upper. But are we limiting ourselves in the way that we are marketing the Civic Center? Are we limiting ourselves and not going after some of the events that maybe we were seeing come in 30, 40 years ago when we were filling it up, using all the seats? Are we seeing competition from some of the newer venues that people would rather go if they're going to have a big concert or something to a new venue, and it's feasible or desirable to have it at the Civic Center? What are your thoughts on any of that?
I visit with promoters and agencies from all over the country all the time, and right now, obviously it's an interesting climate that we're in with events in general, but they're looking for a different capacity. They're looking for less than what we have, like the 1,500 mark, or 1,500 to 2,500. The next jump is they're looking for something well over 5,000. So we are good partners, and when we get a call and someone wants something bigger than what we have, We call our neighbors at Ford Park, and if they can take them, they will. So, and we have communication with them when that does come in. But we also have the 2 theaters, and the 2 theaters pull that 1,500 and less number in all the time. And as you know, we do a lot of concerts at both of those venues. So I think that trying to push us into a market of 5,000 seats, I mean, it's not something that I see being necessary. When I talk to people, they're not looking for that. They're looking for something bigger or what we can offer them. And what we can offer them with this first option is almost 3,000 seats. You know, we can put 1,000 floor seats down, and we've got 1,800 at the top. We're almost at 3,000. So really, you know, unless we're saying we want to redo the entire building and come up with a way to get 6,000 people in there, I don't know that just replacing what we have is going to make us any more marketable than we have been.
Because that only takes you to 4,390, and you say they're wanting over 5,000.
Is the 4,390 including floor seating?
We would be able to put about 500 or so seats on the floor at that point. So it brings you up a little bit closer, but, you know, I look at it like no one's wanted the 3,000 seats. We haven't sold the 3,000 seats. We really do, of these 85 events, 10 of them need to use the retractable seating because of capacity. But the rest are mostly the galas and the expos and things like that.
Emily, let's just say, theoretically speaking, we brought like maybe something like a professional basketball team to the city of Beaumont. What seating arrangement, this first option, do you think that would accommodate something to that magnitude?
We would be, I mean, yeah, the building can be configured in any way, shape, or form. The only thing that we can't change is, if we go with option 1, is what we do upstairs. But for instance, we still had graduations and we have one on Saturday. We've been able to accommodate graduations without pulling the seats out. We have not lost a single graduation, knowing that they couldn't use the seats. So I think that's indicative of how malleable we can be over here, and we have staff that have been here a long time and they know how to configure the room. But to answer your question regarding a basketball team, I would set it up the way that I would set up a concert. I mean, it would be the same thing. You'd have floor seating to where, you know, till you got to courtside, and then you'd use the uppers, just like we would with any other function that we would plan on having in the future.
If they pay us a lot, we could put some more seats in. Right. Anything else, council?
One last thing, as far as marketing and advertising, bringing major talent to the city of Beaumont, do we have like a method that we kind of utilize to actually attract these type of mainstream artists? Like, is it something we do to actually market and bring them here?
Yes, I go to Nashville and I talk to promoters and I talk to agencies all the time. We've done a really good job over the last several years of putting ourselves out there. People know who we are. If we call them, they don't say, Beaumont, where's that? Or what's the Jefferson Theater? They really do kind of know who we are now. We've changed a lot of our look. We've updated our logo and our website, and we have booklets that we bring to them, that we mail to them. I mean, we're really talking to a lot of people. We have a unique market. We're really close to Houston, and I think everybody knows that. We have a lot of competition there on a lot of acts. There's a lot of venues, but we're busy. I mean, in 2019, we did 398 events in all of our venues. We're a very unique city. There are no cities in the state of Texas that have as many venues as we do, nor do they do as many events as we do. So we do have a lot to be proud of, but I think we do a great service. The people that do bring shows here really have a great time, and they keep coming back.
Yeah, I've noticed in the last 10 years how many more we bring, and so, and I think the Jefferson and the Julie add a lot to that too. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, council? I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
So what are the next steps if the council blesses option 1?
Well, what I'll need to do is I'll have to get back and get a contract with the architect to get started on the railing design on that.
Okay.
And we'd go out for a bid on that. And then, like I said, most of the seating vendors, they're on some type of buy group, buy board or something like that I can go and work directly with them instead of going through the whole bid process, and that would speed up that process.
Okay.
Because it's closed right now, right? I mean, the part that's dangerous.
Yeah, the upper, she's not using the upper
At all.
part because of the balcony rail, because
Good.
once you have the retractable seating pulled back, you know, you got, what, probably 10 to 12 foot fall there, and the railing has to be like at 42 inches to keep people from, you know, rolling over.
So this will come back as an action item. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Councilman Durio?
Yeah, when they start the work, do you know about how long it would take and how long the Civic Center will be closed?
Not at the moment, I don't have those numbers.
After y'all do the work, will it still be able to be used? Sometimes it's used in emergency situations like hurricanes and stuff like that. Would it still be available for that?
Yes, yeah, it should be.
So
And I
we'll-
think if we do the option one, the demo part of it, that's a part that would affect any of her events. We'd have to kind of work around that. But once they get started on the upper seating, I mean, we could probably still work around any events you have. It should minimize any interruptions on that.
So they'll move forward with this plan, staff will, but they'll bring it back to the council for a vote. So you'll approve the work, and we'll tell you at that time the estimated timeline, and how much it's going to cost. Just know up front, we're planning to pay for it with cash.
It's an estimate.
I have one more question. Leaving the seats up, we lose some floor space because, you know, and you commented that it presents a problem because of the rail by leaving the seats up. That somehow
Retracted, you're talking about?
it retracted. Yeah. How much would it be to solve the problem with the rail and just leave them up all the time, as opposed to doing this expense?
Well, the railing is what I'm estimating is probably could run us, and then, like I said, it's not designed yet, so don't hold me to the number, but roughly I'm estimating somewhere around 100,000 to redo the railing up there.
Okay, so I'm thinking in my mind, are we picking up enough floor space by demoing the lower seating as opposed to just leaving them up and not using them, not pulling them out, to justify this expense? Because I just heard you say we can solve the safety issue for $100,000 if we left the seats in place and didn't try to retract them. How much floor space are we losing?
You'd be gaining like 3,600 square feet if we pull all that retractable seating out. So basically, it amounts to it may allow M&M to put an additional row of tables or something, because it's basically creating you about a 6-foot aisle around there is about what that seating is retracted into.
About 6 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess one of the options then that was not presented today is just leaving them there and replacing the railing so that we have this safety issue addressed for about $100,000. What would be wrong with doing that?
I mean, that's a council vote, but we're also in this, we're proposing to replace that upper seating, put new seating in the upper balcony areas is included in this.
Is there anything wrong with that upper seating?
They got several issues with it. I mean, plus the age of the seatings, they don't look very clean, not very neat.
And then Emily, you may want to speak to, if you had a gala and you had that seating down all the time, how are you going to cover it up, and would your customers or tenants want to do that?
You're talking about the upper seating? The lower end, oh.
If we just left it.
Are you talking about keeping it extended
That's
or
what it-
retracted?
No, I'm talking about keeping it up all the time, keeping it retracted all the time, so that, you would drape that off like you've always done, and, it's aesthetically pleasing that way. And so, I mean, I've gone into the event center, some of these things that looks magical in there. I'm just thinking that, if we can, keep this retracted and solve the safety issue for $100,000. And I'd like to know more about the issues that are the upper seating, what kind of issues you're having there. That's bench seating, right? Is that, or does it have backs? I don't.
Individual padded seats.
It's individual painted seats. Okay, so that's individual painted seats, padded.
Cushion seats.
So the cushions are 44 years old.
Okay, so I haven't sat up there at an event in a long, long time, so forgive me, but I mean, I don't know what kind of condition those are in. I haven't been up there and looked in a long time, and so, but basically that's where you're talking about putting people. If we get rid of our retractable seating, they're going to be up there. You're talking, is some of the $700,000 number refurbishing those seats as well? Replacing all
of them.
And it's replacing them not for safety reasons, but because of aesthetics or comfort or something else.
Just the age and the wear and tear.
Yeah, I'd like to go look at them myself.
Well, before, I think Councilmember Neal had something before you go, please. And then I think before we say we want to do more work on it, the council needs to kind of weigh in if we want to consider this option or not. Go ahead, Councilmember Neal.
I was just gonna kind of follow up on what Councilman Getz said. The major cost on this is not the demo of those lower seats. It's gonna be the refurbing of the higher seats.
Or the
So, I mean,
replacement.
it's- Yeah, I mean, I just don't see a major cost on demoing these. My question was, back on the architect fees, who were you thinking about using for architect, or for architectural services?
In the disclosure. Yeah, I've been talking with Long Architects.
Thank you.
And Emily, last thing, prior to moving forward, can you just kind of let us know some of the events that reach capacity, like, you know, the Nature's River event, Dancing with the Stars, maybe NAACP banquet? Just let us know how many of these events actually fill up the Civic Center. Just a rough estimate. Just about, you don't have to do it today. I'm just talking about when we have discussion further, just kind of let us know which events kind of fill up our Civic Center.
And you're talking about floor capacity?
Yeah, for what we're trying to
Okay.
actually accommodate.
I
You know,
can
just
get
give
that
us
to
a
you.
rough estimate.
I will tell you, though, that by gaining a little bit more room on the outside, it does help us because there are a lot, and, you know, I feel like our purpose is to support what citizens need first.
Yes, ma'am.
I think concerts are great, and we love to bring that in. But I think that this is a community building that's here for our citizens, and we're doing a lot of community events, and some of them are outgrowing us. And things like Cattle Barons Ball, which we went and met with and fought for to bring to this venue from another venue. They're outgrowing us a little bit, and Party Gras, and even the Mardi Gras Ball. There's a lot of India Fest. They're busting at the seams. So even having 6 feet on each side might help us a little bit in that capacity, because we really do support most of the community events that take place. I mean, that's what takes place in this building.
Yeah, I definitely think that data will help with this decision.
So with that said, and with everything that's been talked about, are y'all still recommending item number 1? Emily and Keith and City Manager?
I'm thinking
So,
for it not being a funded project, I think that would be our most economical option to consider at this point.
okay, so Councilmember Getz brought up a third option. Is there any interest in moving forward with that, or is everybody good with, we've got to give them some direction on what to do, right?
Yes.
So is anybody interested in that option, or are everybody good with us moving forward with number 1?
I'd like personally to go look at the seats that they're talking about
You can do that, but if the
refurbishing.
votes aren't
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I understand. We're not voting though, right?
No, we're not, but we've got to give them direction on what to do, or they don't know what to do. So, I don't hear anyone, so let's move forward with item number 1, and anyone that wants to go look, please do.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, thank
Mayor
you.
and Council, the next discussion item, Mr. Folsom will lead as well. Thank you, Emily. Review and discuss the lighting at Complex 4 located at the athletic complex. This was an item that was brought before the council a number of months ago, and we're back to give you an update and get direction on how you'd like to move forward.
Okay,
Yeah, and I'll kind of go over some of the things as we have new council members. This is at Complex 4 out at the Beaumont Athletic Complex. And the facility was built in 1999, which makes it about 22 years old. Around the first part of March, we had one of 12 light poles that fell to the ground, basically rusted at the base, fell over. After investigating the possible cause of the pole failure, it was discovered that the pole had severe oxidation at the ground level area, which weakened the pole to a point that it failed. And after checking all the other poles on the field, which is the perimeter of the field, they were also experiencing severe oxidation. the existing poles are what they call direct burial poles, so they're direct buried in a concrete footing. There's no anchor bolts. So what we had out there was ground, dirt, grass, water, staying up against the poles, which rotted the base of the poles. So once this occurred, we went out there after the council meeting, and we took the poles down, so the poles are laying on the site out there currently. It was brought, council made the decision for us to maybe get with an engineer and look at our options as to trying to save the poles, put a base plate on it and so forth. So we did that, and I have seen Anijad here with me today, and he's gonna come up and talk a little bit about his part of it. Some concerns I want to point out that I have, altering the poles that were designed for direct burial bothers me a little bit. Just so y'all know, I don't know if y'all got the picture of the pole, but that metal is 3/16 of an inch thick. So it poses a challenge, and I've talked with him, and he feels like he can overcome that challenge, and he'll explain that to you when he comes up. Another concern is the poles are gonna have to be altered in the field. They can't be taken to a shop and worked on, so the conditions out there won't be favorable for that. I have a concern that, hoping we get bids. If we don't get bids, then we'll have to come back and see what our other option is. But with all that being said, like I said, I want to bring Cena up, and he can explain to you kind of what his thoughts are on that and how we can move forward with that, and it'll be up to y'all to kind of make the decision if we go that path. So I'd like to send Anijad or Sigma Engineers to come up.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. You guys be nice to me. Now, remember the days that you sit here, and I'm really nice to you folks, so good afternoon. We have investigated the rusted bases at the poles, and we've determined that at one time they did have some kind of a mastic on the side of them, but they were buried too deep, and the mastic was below ground, and the part that was exposed to the grassy area was not covered with the mastic, and therefore it was rusted away through. And we're very fortunate that when one of these things fell, the place was not occupied, and there was nobody around it. The challenges are that the material itself is a very thin material for a pole that tall. It's 0.18 inches thick, and that poses a challenge where when the metal is thin, you can only weld with so much weld on that material, otherwise it would burn through the material. So we think we have devised a plan to retrofit those things, to cut them at a little bit over where they were at the ground level, install a base plate and install gusset plates, and coming up, they might not look very pretty. They might be a couple of feet higher than the base plate, but we think that we have devised a system that we can weld these things successfully and pour a foundation, put anchor bolts in there and anchor them back to the ground. My thoughts are that we should probably shorten the distance for about 5 or 6 feet, not to interfere with the existing foundation, number one, and also not to have to redo the electrical, because that would be a costly item. If I shorten them by 5 or 6 feet, we most likely would be able to use the existing electrical that was in there. I'm not sure, but we're going to try.
Okay. Questions, council? Yes, Councilman.
Dr. Nejad, have you done a cost analysis between doing it this route versus what they originally proposed, which was replacing them?
I don't have the exact cost for the replacement of it, but the way the cost of steel is going right now is fairly extensive, especially that type of material. We think that for these kind of lights, about $40,000 or so a piece, you can probably get them put back in the ground safely without having to do a lot of other work with them.
Thank you.
That's with the retrofit, the 40?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything else at council? Councilmember
Wait.
Getz?
You said $45,000 for each light?
Yes.
I think it's no, I'm sorry. It's It's $45,000 for half a dozen of them, from what I understand. It would be. It's much less than having to buy those things individually. The foundation probably is about $6,000 or $7,000 a
So
piece.
45, I thought you said 40 per light, so you're
It
saying
would-
45 for six?
It would be around $100,000 for all of them, I think.
$100,000 to do
Right.
everything around that
I
field?
believe so for right now.
Okay.
Of course, we haven't got into it. It's, unfortunately, the prices are fairly artificially so have been magnified after the pandemic, but we'll see what kind of prices we get. As soon as we have the first round of analysis, we would have a cost, and if that's agreeable, we will continue for the final drawings.
Anything else, council?
This is at the athletic the softball fields, and this is just one field or one complex of fields?
It's 3 fields, it's one complex, so each complex has 3 fields. This is the newest complex set back in that far corner, away from Lingham, and so there's 3 fields, 12 lights, and that was one question that was posed to the former council is, you don't have to replace these lights, but then you're not gonna have play again after dark, so, you know, Mr. Najad will study this, come back, and make a recommendation to you with a projected cost to basically repair those 12 lights, and see
Have
what
they
you...
inspected all the other lights out there?
Yes.
Yes, sir. After that one failed, I inspected all the others, but the other light poles are on concrete foundations with anchor bolts, so they're not a direct barrier pole, but all those are in good condition.
Council members?
Kyle, yes, ma'am. From a financial standpoint, you know, I kind of got with the Visitors Business Convention Bureau, and I seen Ford Park, the baseball, is one of our #1 sources to actually get people coming to the city of Beaumont. So, furthermore, would this investment possibly help us, possibly in the future, to get some of the baseball being played at our fields as well? Either to step in the right direction, because right now, their second option is like fields in Lumberton and fields around us. So, like, is this a step in the right direction for us to maybe capitalize and get some return on that investment for the citizens in Beaumont?
They were principally, as you know, bringing in these tournaments, playing at Ford Park. We were the overflow facility, and played on our 12 fields. And this was probably the best of all the fields, or second best, maybe Jimmy Neal's in the back, but it's the newest complex. And it's very nice. And then again, we had this problem with the lighting, so it wasn't safe for people to play, so that's why it's cordoned off. And I know you have some really good ideas that we've talked about with Councilmember Neal about some other improvements we could make to possibly bring in additional tournaments and play, and that's another discussion. But I think this is definitely needed. Let's see if we can repair these poles. Hopefully we can, and you'll make that decision. If not, then you're gonna have to consider replacing those 12 lights at a significant cost versus on those 3 fields, you possibly wouldn't have play after dark. So that complicates things. You could schedule around that, but again, you do have a lot of citizens that play out there on a weekly basis for most of the year. It's well-utilized facility.
You had something, Councilmember Samuel?
Oh, yes. You say not all of the lighting out there was direct burial. Is that right?
I'm sorry, what?
Direct burial?
The ones that we have in that one field.
Just on that one
they're
field.
all
Just that
direct
one.
burial.
That one pod.
Okay, that one pod.
And from what I understand, they all have been taken out and put on the ground.
Okay, and how long had they been down?
22 years.
No, down.
No, I mean installed.
Up,
22
okay.
years.
22 years? And you say they were improperly installed?
Councilman Samuel, when we inspected the one that had fallen, it showed that the waterproofing mastic was below the surface of the ground. at times, when you have a facility that's that old, a lot of times when they cut the grass, the ground kind of starts going up every year. They cut the grass, it sits there, and it just sits there. That might be a possibility.
Okay.
But I cannot tell you how far they had left the mastic above the ground at the time. When I inspected them, they were about 4 or 5 inches below ground, and that's what caused the rusting.
Okay, but another, majority of them were on cement blocks, is that what I heard?
No, sir, none of them were on cement blocks. Every one of them is buried directly in the ground.
Well,
On
what
that
about
pod.
on that pod?
With those 12.
With those 12. So we don't have that existing problem that we're not addressing now with
the
other
other
lights,
fields.
with the other fields.
With this field, they were all the same.
Okay,
The other fields are sitting on a concrete pedestal.
With,
right.
with anchors.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now, and Mr. Neal, I recall of recent that over at Charlton Pollard Park, there was a light that fell. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, that was Laura, Hurricane Laura.
Okay, and was it because of the same type of, oh,
No, we had, that was caused by a tree that fell on the light pole, and it was a concrete light pole, and it broke the pole.
okay. That's done now?
For the
Have we
hurricane.
gotten
We're
that?
in the process, it's not complete yet.
Okay.
And for your information, these lights, the poles would be reworked and reinstalled, but the lights would be the same lights that they were on originally. And we're all gonna replace the lights that were damaged on the one that fell.
Would that be, again, direct burial, or would it be on pedestal?
Nothing would be direct burial anymore.
And so whatever we lose on cutting the pole, we regain it with a pedestal, as far as height is concerned?
I used to be 6'1", now I'm 6'. It'd probably be about a foot shorter.
Okay,
But
that
that's
doesn't
not
create an
gonna-
issue for line of sight with, okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, council? Okay, so we'll try it, right? It's
Yeah,
gonna work.
I guess I need to understand where we are. I need to go ahead and get a contract with Cena.
Yeah, let me, so
Do-
the council
okay.
knows, the public knows, we'll enter into a contract with Sigma Engineering, Mr. Najad, and it's gonna cost a projected, at this time, maybe $42,000. And he'll study it, come back and make a recommendation to the council and the projected cost, and see if you'd like to move forward in that manner. Hopefully to repair the 12 poles.
When that comes back, will we know for sure if it's gonna work or not?
He's gonna have to make that recommendation.
We would start our study, Madam Mayor, if we see somewhere halfway through or at the very beginning that they're not gonna make it, we would not spend additional engineering
Okay.
money. We're gonna stop. We should know, excuse me, fairly shortly, within about a couple of weeks after the contract, that we can do it. The problem, again, it is galvanized steel, and it's very thin. It's 0.18 of an inch thick. So you have to have a very long piece of plate welded on them to reduce the heating of the existing metal.
Well, that was the main thing I wanted to know. We won't just go ahead and move forward and spend all the money and then say it's not gonna work. We're gonna have to do something else. You'll come back to us and say it's not gonna work.
I
and
don't
we
think you
could-
guys be happy with us if I
No.
come back at the end and say it didn't work.
You're right. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Nothing?
I got one other
Oh,
question.
sure, go ahead.
Dr. Najad, worst case scenario, even if you couldn't weld on that, couldn't you sleeve it with a base plate on the sleeve
Yes, sir.
and then attach it to the column or to the pole?
The poles are tapered, and the tapering is the wrong direction. They're tapered such. So if you're going to sleeve them, you have to sleeve them from the top, bring it down, and weld the sleeve around, and then leave this in there. You can, but fabricating a sleeve that is going to have the same perimeter on a cone shape with the 8-sided, 16-sided material is going to be fairly complicated. Now, one of the things that you can do, you can make a larger sleeve and fill it with grout or concrete. So if the welding fails, we will look at other options. We're not going to just throw our hands up. My motivation is to use these light poles again as best as we can.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. All right, that concludes our discussion items. So I will now move to public comment. Now would be the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. If you would like to make public comment today and you haven't already done so, please go ahead now and fill out the green slip at the rear of the room and hand it to the city clerk at the front of the room. She will call out your name, and as I mentioned earlier, we would appreciate if you keep your comments to 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up.
Frederick Fusilier, 4955 Ada Street, Beaumont, Texas.
Good evening. I'm here to express my support and concern for the transit employees. My support is that I support these employees because I know a lot of them. I also support the transit department because I know a lot of people that use the transit system. My concern is that they have been negotiating with this contract company, First Transit, I think the name of them, for 7 months to no avail for a contract. Now, council has been told by the city manager and the city attorney that to not get involved in this. I'm not asking you to sit at the table and negotiate the contract. So don't let anybody confuse what I'm asking for you to do with that, telling you that you ought to get involved in the contract. That's not what I want you to do. I want you to be concerned about the citizens, the workers, and the people that ride the transit system. Now, right now, it's probably not a big deal because everything's been shut down. When the city and the community starts to open back up, people are going to ride the buses again. If the police department or the fire department were in contract negotiations for 7 months, everybody up here would be in an uproar. But these transit employees don't seem to, they're in the shadows. You don't care about them. I take it back. You probably care about them, but they're not on the high priority list for you. But they're on my high priority list. Several months ago, this council, against the manager and the attorney's recommendation, voted to not take the $20,000 bond fee that a contractor was owed the city. But you don't even want to consider the $24,000 that the transit employees lost because of the 3 days from the freeze. Someone is trying to frame this as being a contract negotiation issue. It's not. It's an issue of fairness. The rest of the city employees that lost those 3 days, they got paid. You don't have to have a contract to pay the transit employees just because they lost the same 3 days that everybody else lost from the freeze. It sounds like you're trying to punish the transit department because they are a union organization. So what I'm asking is that you would find out why is this still such a deadlock on this contract. I'm not asking you to negotiate the contract, but you should have concerns because these transit employees, the vast majority, if not all of them, are citizens of Beaumont. They live, pay taxes, and support this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fusilier.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Is there any other citizen who wishes to speak today? Okay, if there's no one, I'll close the floor and I'll move to council comment, and I'll start with you, Councilmember Durio.
No comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Getz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I've said in the past that when you see something, you should say something. And I know that when the event center was designed, it incorporated a modern design, which included a new type of signage that fit in with the architectural style of the building, instead of the traditional green and white signs that we are all familiar with at city parks, libraries, fire stations, and other facilities. A few years later, one of these signs also popped up at City Hall, and I didn't think anything about it because, after all, the building has a large sign on it designating it as City Hall. But in late April of this year, I became aware that the city was apparently in the process of changing out the traditional green and white signage at various city facilities, including city parks. I sent the city manager an email that stated as follows: Kyle, it appears that the administration has made a decision to change the way signage is designed. Did this ever go before council? If so, I don't recall it. If not, should it have? I received the following response: Councilman, we have been using a new design and paint scheme for a number of years around the event center, and we have a new sign at City Hall that was replaced over a year ago. We're replacing signage when needed throughout the city for park locations, city buildings, etc. The city manager's response caused me to have many more questions. It took a while, but I finally got most of them answered. Here's what I learned. The decision to replace signage at city facilities with the new design throughout the city never went before City Council. The decision to do so was made by the city manager and his staff. The city manager claims that the signs are being replaced on an as-needed basis, yet at least 10 signs have already been installed with the new designs since November of 2019. All of these signs, both new and old, are made out of metal, not wood, so they're not going to rot. I learned that the new signs cost around $3,000 a piece, $29.80 to be exact, to be manufactured and installed, while an older sign can be refurbished with new paint and new lettering for about half the cost, if needed. In an email dated April 27th, the city manager claimed he had received many favorable comments regarding the new signs. Personally, I do not like the style of the new signs, but that is a matter of individual taste. What is indisputable is that the new signs are less visible and they cost more to manufacture and install than the old signs do to be refurbished. So I decided to take a survey on Facebook, and I made the following post on May 16th. And I included a picture of both of the signs. And so my Facebook post was, survey question. The city manager has authorized all the signs to be changed out at city facilities at a cost of $3,000 per sign. This matter did not come before City Council. There are over 30 parks, plus libraries, fire stations, etc., that will eventually get the new signage. My question to you is, which style of sign do you prefer and why? Now, I want to note here that there was no misinformation in my survey question. I never said that all the signs were being changed at one time. In fact, I specifically used the word eventually. I was surprised at the response that I received. I've received over 500 comments regarding this matter, and almost universally, the people that responded were overwhelmingly in favor of retaining the green and white signs and refurbishing them as needed instead of moving to the new signage. These comments include members from at least 2 former city council members, former member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, business people, doctors, lawyers, and everyday citizens, all saying, keep the green and white signs because they are more visible and it is more fiscally responsible. I can count on one hand out of those 500 comments the number of people that wanted to move towards the new signage. I do appreciate council members Neild and Turner meeting with the city manager and the city manager's agreement to make any future signs that are going to be replaced to be more visible. I appreciate that because the number one job of a sign is to be able to communicate a message, and it is hard to do that when the visibility is poor because of small lettering. But I'm also letting you know that there is a large number of people in our community that prefer the familiar green and white signs because of the fact that they are highly visible, aesthetically pleasing, and cost less to refurbish them than to have new signs manufactured and installed. I'm not trying to be a micromanager. I am not trying to be a city manager. I didn't sign up for that. I did sign up to be a voice for the constituents of Ward 2 and to let them know about things that are going on in the city and to engage with them and communicate with you what I find And I think that I'm doing my job. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Turner?
Thank you, Mayor. Being a city council at-large member, I felt it was my duty to look into this, and I went sat with the city manager along with Councilman Neal, and I discovered that over the last 5 years, that's roughly 1,825 days, we have roughly 10 signs that have been changed. So me being new, I always want to do research for myself and make sure I bring facts to the table. I definitely had a concern when Councilman Getz put the status out to actually go to Councilman Getz to see what was one of the things he seen were the biggest issues, and the visibility was one of the biggest things. So we decided to address that. Every council member up here received an email on last week stating, moving forward, if signs are changed, it will be visible to the signs similar to the size of the ones that are green. What I asked for as a new council member is for everybody up here, the seasoned ones as well as the new ones, moving forward, we work together in unison and try to get the city of Beaumont a championship. I truly deserve, the city of Beaumont deserves a championship. We deserve better roads, better infrastructure, economic development, and downtown development. So I ask that we work in unison to get the championship, and let's try our best to focus on the bigger issues in the city of Beaumont. And I think if we all work together, we can do so. So thank you for addressing it, and I look forward to working with everyone in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Samuel?
No comment.
Councilmember Neal?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to respond to the sign issue. You know, I feel that this is one of the items that have backed council into a corner because I don't feel that the original post was honest. You know, I think that it said that, it made the comment, I wrote what it said, the city manager has authorized all the signs to be changed out at the city facilities. And I just think that's kind of a play on words because, look, we've been changing signs for 183 years in Beaumont, Texas. And that, you know, the intent behind that is we're going to change the signs out as they fail. It's not like we're going to go out this week and change out signs at all 30 parks and however many signs we have throughout the city. So I just feel that that was misleading. And then I also took major concern with the fact that if we're going to show a comparison, make sure it's a fair comparison. They used a small golf course sign versus a park sign. I don't think that's being honest. And then the rest of us caught heat from the citizens acting like we don't care. What this whole thing boils down to, in my opinion, is gray versus green. I mean, and I did not get on council to pick colors of signs. I have a heck of a lot more to do than pick colors. And I just don't think that's fair to the rest of us. And so I'll leave that alone for now, but the last point, kind of on a more positive note, on June the 12th, from 9 to 4 o'clock at the Beaumont Municipal Airport, they are going to have a fly-in. This is a reschedule from the May event, so it's a kid-friendly event, so please come out. It ought to be a great time.
Thank you. Have anything? No? City Manager?
I want to first thank Councilman Turner and even more Councilman Neal for your comments. Staff works really hard. Go back 5+ years, Chris Boone, Lenny Caballero, and a group of staff came up with the design for those signs around the event center and the Lakeside Center. We think they look really nice, and we understand that some people wouldn't like them. But if you drive by MLK Park and Gilbert Park, you can definitely read those signs right now. And we will ensure that new signs have the same size lettering or larger. And Mr. Folsom works with department directors and makes those determinations when signs are in disrepair and need to be replaced. And I think they do a heck of a good job trying to improve the aesthetic citywide. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate what you said, Councilman Turner, about working together, but one of the things that we have to remember, if we're going to work together, we can't throw each other under the bus. And I absolutely agree with Councilmember Neal in that that post was very misleading. It was, as I call it, a half-truth. It might not have been a lie, but it was not the whole story. It wasn't. When I read it at first, I even thought that, and I knew the story. And so, you know, there's a lot of talk out there, and I'm getting ready to leave, so what? There's a lot of talk out there about how we need to get along better. We can't get along if the council makes a decision, we're all good with it. The city manager sent us all an email. No one else had a problem with it except you, Councilmember Getz. So as you said, you went on Facebook. The comparison, I also agree, was a little sign that didn't have any landscape around it that was at the golf course versus a large park sign that had greenery around it or grass. And it didn't look good. But it is not the typical sign like you see out here or in other places, or at Collier's Ferry Park, where it was on television the other night, and it was a beautiful sign. Not everybody's going to agree on the color. Before long, are we going to start saying what kind of signs we're going to put on the side of our trucks? And I mean, I've never, ever decided something like that on this council, and I've been on for a long time. And I would much rather spend our time like we used to in doing big things like the city manager talked about before, like the event center, like the Lakeside Center, like the town lake, like the brick pavers. We don't have 7-0 votes on that kind of stuff anymore. I hope that whoever the new mayor is that comes in can make that happen. I've tried, but I have all the other council members on my side here. Councilmember Getz wanted to do a work session on the signs. To get a work session, you have to get a second. There was not a second. So why are we beating this horse in the media, in the press, and making everyone else look bad? And going on the city government Facebook page and talking about firing the city manager, that there's one there that would. That's just wrong. You can do whatever you want on your private Facebook page, but don't come on my government Facebook page where we've been talking about positive things and giving information to people, just like the pandemic and what's happening. That's what that page is for. It's not to fight. If you want to go fight, there's plenty of Facebook pages you can do that. Don't do it on my government page or on y'all's government page, because that's just, I don't even know the word for it. But, you know, we're never going to move forward if we can't support the majority of the council. I always say, if you're on one side, if you're on the 3-person side versus the 4-person side, when you finish, you need to be able to walk away and be done with it, and recognize that you're on the 3-person side. The 4-person rules. Don't be a part of a body if you cannot physically do that. I've had a lot of times where I was on the losing side of something through these 27 years, many times. But that's how it is, and I recognize that the majority rules. Did you have any council members that tell you that you needed to stop this when you told us? Any council to stop the sign replacement?
Never.
With the exception of one.
Never.
Okay. So it's not fair to our employees, our staff members, and especially the ones that work for us, to go on Facebook and diss them. I've had problems before, but I call. I say, can I come talk to you? And we shut the door and we talk about it. We don't air it in public. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be transparent. We absolutely should. But you don't put somebody down in public, especially on a government page as a council member. Mike, I've been trying really hard to go along with a lot of the stuff you've been doing, but man, this one just, I don't even know where this is coming from. I feel like there has to be something more to it than just signs. And I would assume that there probably is. So, like you said, if you see something, say something. So don't get mad at me for saying what I see. And what I see is a very, very, maybe true, but misleading Facebook post. So, with that said, if there's nothing else, we will now recess into executive session. Thank y'all for coming.